You grew up in Hillmar, California, which is near Modesto. What was your childhood like, and what were you like as a kid growing up?
Helmar is a very unique small town. It's about 5,000 people population wise, and has been that size for 20, 25 years or so. It's not a place that grows, but it's a great place to grow up. I think that the life that I lived as a child was unique. It was one where I was heavily supported by not only my parents, my family, but also the community. It's a very strong community, like I said, tight knit, small town type of deal, agricultural based. So blue collar work ethic is definitely ingrained into everyday life over there. And the schools that I attended, it's definitely a one elementary school, one middle school, one high school town. When I was growing up, I think they had a grand total of three stoplights. I think they have four or five now. So moving up on the world in that scale, but the schools were always excellent. I think that once again, you had a lot of consistency. You had teachers that had been there for, 10, 15, 20 years in some case. And that really helped because they're kind of ingrained in the culture of what the town of Hillmar is and was and continues to be to this day. So very fortunate to be from that community. I am who I am today because of the way my parents raised me and also because of where I was fortunate enough to grow up as a child.
I kind of want to talk about your folks a little bit. I know your dad came to the States from Portugal. Like, can you kind of describe like your mom and dad and what they were like kind of growing up in that environment in Hillmar?
Yeah, excellent parents to this day, still very involved in my life and the lives of my children. They're just, I don't know, the kind of parents that want to see you succeed and want to do a lot of things for you to help you succeed without stepping over the boundaries. And from a financial standpoint, we weren't the most well off financially, but we always had the necessities that we needed for life. And we also had love and support, which is probably the most important things that they could give to me. Like you said, my dad is an immigrant from the country of Portugal, specifically the islands of the Azores Islands, which are kind of a set of islands that are off the coast of Portugal. And he came to the States when he was about 14 years old, I want to say. So obviously came here with minimal education, but worked his tail off and everything that he did, and put himself and eventually our family into a great position in life because of just his strong work ethic. He was the kind of guy and is the kind of guy before he retired, he just never missed a day at work. He retired, he had like, an ungodly amount of sick days off that he never even used, and a number of vacation days that he never even used. So he's one of those guys just committed to his cause. And I think a lot of the work ethic that I had and still hopefully have to this day comes from him. And then my mom, she's born and raised in California. She is an educator, so I get that kind of education, coaching side of myself from her, I think. And once again, very, very involved in my life. She's kind of nearing the end of her career as well. As far as being an educator, she's nearing retirement, so she's looking forward to that. But she's had an amazing impact, not just on myself, but many youth in the Central Valley area, whether that be in Hillmar or some of the neighboring communities like Merced and Ceres. She's had an impact on youth year after year, and I would appreciate the perspective that she gives for me on life. She's definitely the type of person who's not afraid to speak up and say things when things are out of place, and that could be things in my life. If I'm doing something that she doesn't necessarily agree with, she's gonna let me know. And she's always been that way with me, and always been not afraid to coach me up. And for the most part, I do take the direction.
It's tough when it when it comes from mom, especially. I feel like we always like tend to fall in line. I remember my mom told me to go do something. In my mind, I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then 2 seconds later, I'm doing it. Maybe because I was a little bit fearful about the repercussions, man. But that's so cool how influential your parents are or still are today in your life. And I'm really looking forward to kind of diving in, on how they guided you through your football career. Was there somebody who got you started in football, or like what made you gravitate towards the game of football, I guess is probably a better way of asking it.
Yeah. My dad being, Portuguese immigrant, he wasn't necessarily an American football fan. He was more of a football or soccer fan, as we call it in the States. So he's athletically inclined. My mom is athletically inclined as well. She was more of a thrower in track when she was coming up through the ranks. My direct involvement with football is more related to my cousins. So my cousins, who probably have 10 or 15 years on me, on average, most of them played football. And they played football Pop Warner level. They played football for Hillmar High School, for the green and gold of the Yellow Jackets. So there's definitely some strong family pride tied in with playing football, specifically in Hillmar. And then two of my cousins did play quarterback. And the reason why I wear or wore the number 7 as a player is because of them. So there's definitely the ties to them, and that's kind of the what I followed. When it came time to learn how to throw a football, my dad wasn't necessarily going to be able to teach me how to throw a football because obviously he was more of a soccer player, which is great. But I had cousins that were very influential and around, and they were able to show me, the finer points of playing quarterback, and that's really what got me hooked on the game and playing the position is the involvement of my cousins. And to this day, there's still people that are, for the most part, pretty diehard 49er fans growing up in the Valley, or usually a Niner fan, possibly a Raider fan. But my family was more tied to the Niners. And to this day, I still have conversations with all those cousins, about the Niners season, how Brock Purdy's doing, and things like that. So they're really the ones that got me directly involved, from a family standpoint. And then obviously, the coaches that I got to interact with in Hillmar, Pop Warner wise, high school level wise. And I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit later, but they just kind of continued that evolution for me.
Do you remember being with your cousins? You're learning the finer points of football, how to throw a football, the kind of nuances of the game. Do you remember thinking to yourself internally, like, "Hey, like I can do something with this, or I would like to do something with this"? Like, what was that internal dialogue? As you're kind of learning the sport and realizing that you really enjoy it.
Yeah, it was just more of a goal setting thing for me. I knew that I really enjoyed playing football. I really know that I enjoyed playing the position of quarterback. And I started to learn at a young age that, hey, you can do things with this game. This game can take you places as long as you respect it. You work hard and you have a little bit of ability. You can do some things with it. So I set those goals early on in life. And for me, that was always just to play college football, get my education paid for. Back then, that was the years when USC was kind of on the rise. And I remember even before that, Steve Spurrier was just lighting it up at Florida with like a guy named Rex Grossman, who many people don't remember, but and even Jesse Palmer was involved with that, which is funny to say now. But those are kind of the guys that I looked up to, Saturday mornings watching football, watching them throwing the ball around the yard, throw for thousands of yards. And then obviously that evolved into USC and what they were doing, with Pete Carroll and all those great teams that they had going on. So that was really a glimpse of what it possibly could be. Not saying that I wanted to be a Florida Gator or that I wanted to be a USC Trojan. That's just a wild thought to have nowadays. But I did know at that point that, hey, I want to play college football. I want to play at the big time level, Division 1, and that's a goal that I have. And at that point, it's way out in front of you. You have no idea how to even get a sniff of that. But I was fortunate to interact with a number of people, stay committed to that goal, and follow a path, and it got me where I wanted to go.